I'll take that.
Did you put your order in today?
25%.
Virtual.
Everybody's
Something that's right.
Chase, do you want to help me switch over to the first presentation before I get started?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure what the plan is, the mask. Okay. That way we're not doing this after I've introduced our speaker. All right. Well, welcome everyone. If you could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I'm Rachel Roy, and I believe I know everyone. Almost got to say hi to everyone. Thanks for being here. I would like to go around the room. There's some new faces here, which is really great to see you all. Do you want to kick us off on this side?
Hey, I'm Garland Kennedy with the Sitka Sentinel.
Dan Adeline.
TV.
TV.
Steve Black, Sampson, Tug and March.
Fran Shuho, Sitka Job Center.
Yeah.
John Leach, City Administrator.
Gary White, Sitka Economic Development Association.
Ron Vincent, Public Works Director for the city.
Joseph Baya, Airport Terminal Manager.
Great.
Michael Harmon, municipal engineer for the city.
Melissa Wildman, Public and Government Relations Director of the city.
Harvey Grant, retired educator, grandpa, and entrepreneur.
We like it.
Chase Coleman with the Sitka Chamber of Commerce.
Lauren Olson, Vice President Lending, Northern Bank and Chamber Board member.
Tanya Pulitane, General Manager for the Westmark Sitka and the Coldwater Bar and Grill, and also owner-operator for Transformational Living, Greater Sitka Arts Council board member. Quick plug, we do have our first art walk coming up Friday. And so this is the first spring art walk. So there's 10 different businesses that are participating downtown. There'll be art shows, live music, there will be snacks and beverages, and Transformational Living is located above the Silver Basin, former Silver Basin spot, and we will be exhibiting artwork and having snacks up there too. So there will be prize drawings and little passports that come out. So when you visit more of the locations that are hosting, you can be entered to win a prize there.
And tell us again the day and time.
It is 5 to 7 p.m. this Friday.
Mark your calendars. I definitely am excited for that, and I love that the Arts Council does this. It's totally on point with Shop Local, and it actually is a nice lead-in for our Silver Saver program. So the Silver Savers just came out on Monday, April 1st, so they're brand new all the way for a year. The Coldwater is a new advertiser. If you love their soup, you can have a free soup purchase. Alaska Pure Sea Salt is on. The Cellar, Winter Song Soap Company. Fait Accompli Gallery and Gifts is brand new this year, 10% off anything in their store. Forget Me Not, Antique Souvenirs, and Stained Glass, 10% off of their items that, and they're located just under here, under the Coldwater. Pizza Express, Manjari did a new discount type. If you spend $100, which likely you will, you save $15. So that's a pretty sweet deal. The Sitka Food Co-op is one of our newer members, and they joined 10% off store-wide. You don't have to be a co-op member to shop there, and so definitely get your Silver Saver from them. Sitka Work and Rugged Gear and Ravens Hook. So definitely worth it. We don't sell them. We want you and encourage you to go out to the advertiser's location to buy yours, and they're $20. And like I said, they'll be good for the whole year. We sent out an email with a business survey, and it's really great when Sitka participates, and Actually, I really love it when Sitka's outlook on business and the future of business is positive. So if you're positive about the future of business, go ahead and fill out that survey. Oh, I'm kidding. But there's a link. Southeast Conference puts together that information. So take a minute to do that and share it with your friends. We had a really awesome gathering of the Sitka Emerging Leaders group, and we had about 20 people show up. We looked at personal branding and thinking about how we're sharing ourself out with the public, and also professionally. I shared my story of when I moved back to Sitka and chose not to wear pajamas to the grocery store anymore. I chose that I was going to be like this new woman and really present myself as a professional no matter where I was. And now I'm often working in the grocery store. In the produce aisle is where you get hit up a lot. So we had a photographer also come, and headshots were taken of all of our emerging leaders, and so they're all going to be able to use that. It's on their resumes or in their email signatures or as they're presenting themselves on LinkedIn. So really excited about that. The first cruise ship is coming next week on Monday, and it will come only one ship each week on Mondays. That is happening through April, and then we'll see a more regular schedule starting that last week of April. Hi, John. Oh, he didn't hear me.
Hi.
Hi. So the expo, this Visit Sitka Summer Expo, is an event that we put together to bring together the industry attractions and tour operators and new businesses to get in front of community and frontline staff. Everyone, even the guys at the airport or your public works folks, like send them in so they can walk through, so that you can answer the question, what's happening with the Fortress of the Bear? Who's at the national park? So it's 3 hours. It's on Friday, April 26th, and there'll be snacks there, and it really is a really great opportunity to meet the industry folks and then get to know their teams, and then for them to meet you as well. I encourage people to put it on their staff calendar so it makes it happen and gets them there at the event. So last week I attended the housing summit, Sitka Housing Summit. That was a really great group. There was about 70 people working on Sitka's housing. I think there'll be more information kind of the takeaways from that, but really looking forward to continuing that work. I know there's a few of us that were there, but really important conversations and kind of getting to the root of what are some of Sitka's perceived problems, real problems, how can we start solving them, and kind of dig in for that. Harvey had something that he wanted to mention. Would you like to say that? Mm-hmm.
From here?
You can come up if you like. Yeah.
My wife and I have lived here a long time, raised our kids here, grandkids here. We live right beside Granite Creek, and the little park across the street has a park ranger, largely due to the efforts of people like Brownie and others. The park ranger's leaving. He's leaving in a week or two, and I'm really not very thrilled about having my house across the street from Party Central. The reason he's leaving is because of housing. He can't find housing or state parks with no park ranger. And if we're a tourism town, to me, that sounds like a crisis. Not a big one maybe, but could the chamber step forward, do something? I think he's going to be gone. And furthermore, there is a structure in the park that was damaged by a tree, which I can fix overnight, but I, don't have a legal, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's where he would live if it were repaired. Could you please use your clout and get something done? It's important for tourism.
And for
the
community.
brands.
Yeah, and the brands. Thank you, Harvey.
And the community, of
Yes.
course. Thank you.
Well, you've got one of our board members here. Lauren has been one of the leads on our housing initiative, which brought that 8-week speaker series last week. So or last fall. You're definitely talking to people who care about finding housing solutions, so I appreciate you sharing that. I know, talking with Fran, there's lots of jobs open, lots of need, and so housing is one of those fundamental needs of our workforce. All right, I'm done talking, and I want to introduce Joseph. He is our airport terminal manager. Really nice guy, easy to talk to, which I'm happy about. He's going to give us an update on the project, and you'll have to wake up your computer, but I'll just turn it over to you and tell us some more about you, right?
Thank you very much.
Yes,
I do
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Hello everyone, my name is Joseph Bay. I'm the airport terminal manager for the city and borough of Sitka. One quick second while I turn this computer on here. So the first thing I'd like to do is go ahead and share a rendering that we got from our design team. This is what the terminal is going to look like at the end of this project. So I know that there's going to be a little bit of growing pains, a little bit of kerfluffle as we go through this construction project, but this is where we're going to end up at the end of this. So this is coming through the arrivals. Baggage claim is going to be off to your right here, and this is where you're going to come down the concourse. Nugget's going to be right over to the right here. Come past the Nugget, and you're going to come into this new TSA screening area. So this is where you're going to pass through the TSA screening process. You're going to come to the right. We're actually going to get a second X-ray machine to make sure that we're able to deal with capacity. Coming through this area, a little bit of a bench here, put your shoes back on, and then this is where folks are going to be waiting for the ground loading. Coming out onto the terminal, this will be one of the gates. Coming over here to the left, you're going to come up the escalator up into the second story area. And this is going to be where the jet bridge attaches. You're going to come across and board the plane from the jet bridge from this area here. Bathrooms back there. And then this entire space, large ceilings. Back in the corner, back there, we're going to have a concession opportunity. AIP funds are going to build this out as you currently see it, and then we're going to come back into that area, build that out for concessions. And then as you look out across the second floor story, you're going to be able to see out over that Mount Edgecombe back there. And then to the south as well, we're going to have some large windows so you can see in that direction as well.
Wow. Yay. It's beautiful.
So then I'd like to thank the design team for providing that. They did a great job with that rendering and just an overall amazing job in creating this space. Can't get the notes to go away.
We
Apologize
can't
for
see
that.
them.
You can't see him.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's just
you're
me.
good.
Yep.
All right.
You're good.
We're good. Before we go through the slideshow, I'd like to really quickly go over some of the accomplishments made by the city to get us to the point where we can go ahead and begin the construction progress. First thing that we did from Pat, we got a building permit, and that was executed on July 31st. From that, we got the Airport Improvement Program grant awarded and fully executed in February 21st, with a sub-award following closely after that. Memorandum of agreement was entered into between the state and CBS last month. The CMAR for the construction was fully funded with an extraordinary effort from Melissa Haley, Tori Fleming, and Allison Hackett. Permit to build from Statewide Aviation, Sharon Augustine worked with our team of construction management, Jenny Lillenjadal and Dan Kirsch with PTS. The master lease agreement is progressing through the public notice period currently and is about to be executed with a lot of help from our administrator, John and Ron, as well as working with Statewide Aviation, Sharon Augustine again. And currently, we're wrapping up a few loose ends with the Dow DBE contract, making sure that we're in compliance with those requirements. We've got FAA concurrence on that, and I'd like to give a quick thank you to Ken Hammonds. He's the project inspector on this improvement project. and he is the individual who took a lot of the photos that I'm going to be showing you today. So I'm going to go through this. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just show you some of the construction that's happened to date, give you guys an example, and show you what's happening out there at the airport. So this is what it looked like before we got anything there. These are the barriers being delivered to the site. These are being expanded out and across the entire airport, and this turned the secured identification display area into a non-secured area. So our individuals can be out there doing the construction, building out that temporary barrier out past the fence line there. Knife gate was removed. We went ahead and took that out, pulled that off the electrical system, and put in a temporary construction gate. One of the first things we had to do is remove the utility lines that are servicing the old building, and we had to bump those out past the addition. So we had to trench and put in a substantial amount of conduit outside of the footprint of the new addition. This is us in the secured area, saw cutting through the asphalt and making our way over to the terminal building, where we had to get to the 480 junction box to make sure that we could continue to operate the jet bridge. During all this construction, it's been an extraordinary coordination effort between all the tenants, all the operators at the airport, and the construction team. Currently, we're working with GCI to come in and unplug our fiber. We're going to do another overnight. It'll be the second overnight this week. We did an overnight Monday and Tuesday to disconnect the backup generator from the transfer switch. So none of you should notice any of these things. The goal is to keep operations at the airport completely contained and moving forward and unaffected by the construction. So these are a few more shots of us coming over with those utility lines. These are giant steel plates. I think these are about 1 or 2 tons. We had to put these in place over the trench so Alaska could continue to operate their baggage, their ground support equipment, get into the bag makeup area, and continue moving those flights. After we got those cut and then the conduit laid in the ground, we came back, poured some D1, and poured concrete. You can see in this picture, we are running the electrical lines through these conduits as the concrete's getting poured. So it's just a really good coordination effort. Sitka Electric, K&E, Alaska, and as well as MCG have all been working very closely together and very well together. So that's the end of the concrete pour there. That's us moving those concrete barriers back into place, turning that back into a non-secured area. So this was the first power outage that we did on March 15th. We brought a backup generator out. We had 2 backup generators going at one time. This is the second backup generator provided by Sitka Electric. This was supplying 480 volt power to the 480 junction box so we could continue to move the jet bridge, continue flight operations while we were doing this power outage. This was staged at night, and then the next day we came in very early. As soon as 62 got out in the morning, we went ahead and did the power changeover. So this is everyone showing up early. This was a coordination between Alaska, the K&E Alaska, as well as Sitka Electric. And then as soon as the power changeover was completed, concrete was dried, we went ahead and pulled those giant steel plates. So this area was kept clear for Alaska so they could continue operating. This is a big panorama of the job site as we moved into the excavation of the new addition. So it's just going to pan around here to the right. This is after we saw cut and removed all the asphalt. Big dirt lot. And so from here we started coming in and excavating. At the same time we were excavating, MCG is building these large forms for these enormous concrete footers that are going to go on the outside of the terminal building. So as these are being excavated, this is some giant rocks that we pulled out of the ground. Those were a bit of a pain to move. As this excavation was going on, MCG is over on the side, and it is a very tight construction area. It's a limited space. So as a West Coast excavation is coming in, clearing out the footings, the area where we're going to place these footings, MCG is over here building out the rebar, building out these forms, these large wooden forms that the concrete has been poured into. So this is both MCG and West Coast Excavations working around each other, doing a great job of utilizing the space out there at the airport in our limited, non-secured area, pushing the project forward. This is Alaska Test Labs. They are coming out and making sure that the excavated area is being compacted down. So this device here is actually a radioactive machine that shoots down and tells us if the compaction, if the air, if there's any air in there that needs to be pressed down. We're looking for about 95% compaction on this project. And we're taking measurements each time we come in with 4-inch rock, making sure that area is not gonna settle and crack our foundation or cause any problems with our buildings down the line. So here's our compaction, West Coast Excavation using the roller, making sure that we're meeting that target. And at the same time this compaction work is being done, MCG is building out these just enormous footers. These forms that are gonna be our footers. So that's more of the rebar being moved after the forms have been placed into the excavated area. And these are just being lined up at the same time. We're using this forklift to pull these fabricated piece of rebar. Rebar's been inspected, so as soon as it's been inspected and approved by the city, we move it in place of the form, and then we get ready to pour the concrete. So this area is coming out into the street. This is where our comms are located. Our communication cables, our fiber, and our coax. This is in the way of the construction area. We need to put down water and sewer. And so this is one of the things that we're moving this week. GCI is in town. They are flying their people in over the next couple of days, and they're gonna be looking to do a temporary stoppage of service for Alaska at the end of this week. That's gonna be the second outage of this week, and we're gonna be looking to do that overnight, Friday night into Saturday morning. So we came through this section, we cut across here. You may have noticed if you drove to the airport lately, there were some big steel pads over this section. That's what we were doing here. As soon as we got this dug up, we went ahead and laid some conduit down across the street. And then as soon as the conduit was in the ground, we went ahead and poured back over that. And as soon as the pour was back over there, put some giant steel plates over that so people could drive over and continue to utilize this area. Keep the operations of the airport moving. So this is the beginning of pouring these giant footings. And one of the things we have to do to make sure that the footings are, the concrete is what we want it to be, is we need to test the air and we need to do slump tests. The slump tests have been right within our, what we're looking for. We were looking for about 4 to 6 inches, and it's been about right in there every time, looking for about 4% air. That's what we're testing here. We're pulling out samples, and we're then shipping those samples up to Juneau to be compaction tested. Currently, everything's been breaking over 4,000 pounds. So it's at the first measurement, which I believe is about 8 days, that's been within 4,000 pounds. So as I understand, it's logarithmic. It's going to continue to go up. So we're meeting our goal. We're meeting our goal, and we should actually exceed our goal as the project goes forward. So this is us coming in and pouring concrete into these giant footings. This was about 13 cement trucks. We had 3 cement trucks operating at the same time at the beginning of the day. That turned into 2 cement trucks. As 1 cement truck was finishing, we just had another one coming in right behind that, continue to pour. A lot of concrete went into these. Each day, I want to say it was about 12, 13 different cement trucks for each single one of these footers that we came through on. And that's where we are about currently. We have 3 of these very large footers on the airfield side of this work site, and now these are covered by plastic tarps to make sure that it's curing and that it's even. We're keeping the rain off of it. We're just making sure this is as happy as possible. So that's pretty much what I have to show you of the construction that's happened so far on the project. Right now, I'd like to apologize for the adverse effects we're having on the Nugget and explain why exactly some of the construction you're going to be seeing over there over the next few months is happening. So going forward, this is the Nugget here, and we are going to be putting this footer down, and we're going to be affecting this wall. We are also going to be building a temporary baggage tunnel moving from the TSA section here, over through the Nugget, and then out onto the airfield side. The reason we're doing that is because we are in phase 1B, moving into the south area of the terminal and putting in these footers here. What we were looking at is any way we could keep out of the Nugget, but unfortunately, the clearance between our baggage tunnel and these footers is less than a foot. You know, it was within 6 to 8 inches, which would not give the construction team enough space to do their work. So what we ended up deciding to do, we couldn't come out here because of the passenger flow. So we had to stay out of that area, we had to stay out of this area, which only left, unfortunately, going through the Nugget. So we're gonna try and keep this as abbreviated as possible, so we're not having too much of an adverse effect on the Nugget. But unfortunately, it's gonna have to be a part of the project. So we're gonna be coming through with our temporary baggage tunnel, eliminating a little bit of their space as we move out and into the airfield. Very much apologize. We tried to avoid it. We did everything we could, but it is going to be necessitated by the project. And we're going to, again, try and keep that as short as we can. So here is the current project area. This here is our temporary fence line, and here is the addition that we're be expanding and building out over the next year. What we have showing you here in green are the passenger footfalls onto the plane, as well as when we have 2 planes here boarding at the same time, we'll be coming out of the breezeway and then loading and ground loading onto the planes there. This also shows the traffic of the baggage makeup and how they're going to be moving through the airfield. And that's expected to last until about August, at which point we're going to be moving into phase 1A2 and phase 1B. That's what this is going to look like. So this is where I want to give you all a heads up. This is where we're going to be ground loading. As we come into the back of the terminal area here, this is our temporary baggage makeup situation that's cutting through the Nugget, and we are going to be extending the temporary fence line out into the airfield. That's going to eliminate our jet bridge for at least a little bit of time. So from this point, from August in through the winter, we're going to be ground loading the planes. We understand it's going to be difficult. We're going to make accommodations as much as we can, but please bear with us. This is expected to take a number of months, so expect when you go over to the airport after August that you will be ground loading, and we're going to be trying to make that as painless as possible. So these are the footfalls that you're going to be taking. You're going to be screened and put into a sterile area. That's going to be a sterile holding, a passenger hold right there. And you're going to exit the building over across where the baggage claim is currently, out onto the airfield, and then moving on these large stanchions. It'll be sectioned off. You'll know where to go. It'll be very clearly delineated, and you'll be moving through these areas out to the planes. That's all I have for you this afternoon. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions that I can answer? All right. Well,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Pretty exciting. I actually sat in the Nugget and watched the trench get built. That was fun. It was like, if you've got a kid, go over there and look out the window, because it was good. I saw that was it's okay. So next, we get to hear an update. I'm really looking forward to hearing this from Gary White. He's going to talk about the haul out and boatyard shipyard project that's happening. And yeah, take it away, Gary.
All right, it'll take me just a second, hopefully. All right. Well, hello, I'm Gary White with the Sitka Economic Development Association. They asked me to come here and talk about the GPIP vessel haul out project and how it's moving forward. And also in the audience is Michael Harmon. He's kind of been the guy that's building this, and I'm kind of the guy that's handling some of the public process to get this thing moving forward. So I just want to go through some history. Since the mill site properties were acquired in 2000, the city's always looked at how to develop this into multiple different things, into docks, into haul outs, all kinds of marine related activities. So from probably 2000, we've had state and legislative, federal legislative priorities to get money to build this. We've gone out after multiple grant applications. We've been scoring well on those. And we put out multiple RFPs. We put one out in 2009, 2014, and then in 2020 or 21 to see if there was any private sector development that folks that wanted to come in and do it. We were not successful in any of those things. We actually entered into an agreement with a couple of different groups to build it, but once they started getting into the cost, it just didn't seem like they were able to put it together. So on October 4th, 2022, we asked citizens, hey, do you want to take about $8.2 million out of the permanent fund, which happened to be from the same amount that was put in the permanent from the sale of the community hospital. And of people voted, 80% of the people roughly voted and said, this is a good project. So we immediately moved forward with starting up a project charter, which I'll show in a second here, and it kind of defines on all the information you need to know on how this project's going, what the goals are, what the milestones have been met, and our funding and everything else. So we're going to go through those. So our goals is we've heard from the community that most folks have larger boats that weren't able to get, not most folks, but folks that were not able to get hauled out at the former marine site, which is Halibut Point Marina. And so we heard loud and clear that 150-ton lift could lift about 96% of our boats. So we also thought, we also heard that folks, there's a lot of tender boats, a lot of larger boats, a lot of boats that travel from western Alaska back to Puget Sound that might want to use this. So we wanted to build this so we had the ability to expand in the future, potentially up to a 300-ton lift. Of course, we have an existing ramp there now where boats can get hauled out either on bags or on trailers. And folks wanted to keep that, so we have plans to put that back into place. Of course, we want to have a shipyard so our boats can get work done and our marine service folks can do the work. And that's about keeping and growing our marine service jobs. It's also critical emergency infrastructure. If there's a boat sinking right now and Allen Marine's lifts are tied up, they can go to the grid, but there's really no place for them to go. So it's an emergency infrastructure that we should have with such a large boating community that we do have. And then of course we did a BCA, what is it? Benefit cost analysis while we were applying for one of these grants, and what we looked at was, how much does it cost the fishermen to have to go to another community and fuel? How much does it cost them for loss of fishing time? And then, how much carbon impact is this having on our environment? And the numbers are pretty staggering. So we've used those numbers as a basis when we go out to federal grants of like, why is this a good idea and why does Sitka need it? Being one of the biggest harbor systems in the state and one of the biggest commercial fishing fleets. So here's our project charter. Over here, if you look at, this is a lot of the stuff that's been completed, and I'm going to go over that. And then this is the stuff that's coming up. You can see our total budget for everything is $15 million. We have secured about $9.2 million, which leaves us about 5.8 short. So I'm also going to break down here in a little bit what that entails and what that does not entail. But I want to go over some of the project outline here. And I'm going to talk a little bit. So, we started out, that vote passed in October. By November, we had the project charter, which was back a page. We had that developed, we had it in front of the board, we had that approved. In December, we put out an RFP for professional services to have folks come in and help develop and be port planners and have a subject matter expert on it. That went out. Once we got all through the advertisement and responding time, we had a group on P&D Engineering out of Juneau by March. They immediately came over, started working on the site. started doing some geotech investigations, started looking at everything and getting some plans together. They conducted bathymetry, site surveying, and other investigations. And so now we had a good idea of what was out there, but we hadn't really figured out what site it was gonna be in, because there's multiple places in the industrial park. So we had them develop what was called a decision matrix that looked at cost of construction, operational efficiencies, expansion opportunities, and overall risk to the project. And that had a whole scoring section, and we went through that and we narrowed on a site that is where the existing ramp is, but when we started looking at travel times for moving machines and where the yards are and everything else, this seemed like to be the best site. So we brought that to the board. They approved it. So now we started moving forward with subject matter experts, and we gathered folks, the guy that developed the Wrangle Yard, we've grabbed folks that ran the old HPM site, and then we grabbed folks from Al Marine. All these people that have moved boats, will be moving boats. And we came up with a really good design and what was needed and what wasn't needed. And then we brought all that to the board of directors, and then they approved a concept, which is concept 4, which I'll show you. And then we brought that to the assembly, and that happened. So all of our not all of our planning, but majority of our planning, we went through a pretty robust public process to make sure that everyone could understand that we're just not doing this in a vacuum. We're asking for expert opinions and moving forward with that. So here's our costs. As you can see, the haul out piers, that's about 3.3 million. We've got you got to have some expansion for that. We've got having a washdown pad, so the boats get hauled out. We can environmentally correctly collect all of the water that's being washed off the boats for any contaminants. It's being treated. We've got that in there, and then we've got a boat lift in there for about $1.5 million. Or I'm sorry, $1.15 million. Well, we started looking at these different costs because we saw that we got a $5.8 million deficit. We started looking at a different machine, a machine that has all-terrain tires that can actually go up over curves. It can deal with all of the different stuff that's happening. And that's gonna allow us to not have to put a lot of money into the site development, but can be put into a good machine that we can run all over the place and be able to use multiple parts of this yard. And then these are all the things that we haven't added. Well, we decided, because we got a $1 million Denali Commission grant last year, that we can take that money for this boat haul out. So now that frees up $1 million. So what can we add back in? And the board wants to add in a permanent washdown pad, because it seems like a good use of money to do it once and not have to do it twice. I talked about the upgrades to the hoist, and then so we have that ability right now with our budget, which is now 9.2, right? Because we got the other $1 million grant there. So these are all the things that we will try to add in with additional grant funds or any type of savings, if there are any savings from the project once we get further along. And I want to explain that a little bit here coming up. So this is our site plan that we came up with. You can see this is the old SIAC Logistics old boat company building, which is now back in the city and borough's hands. Here's our multipurpose dock. Here's the Hanson Maritime Dock. Our existing ramp was here. This is where it's going to be at. We're going to come out and we're going to build out here that allows us to take a 150-ton lift. But then we can also expand it in the future with using the same footprints to come out and do a 300-ton lift in the future. And so that was our original design. Then we had to move into this because we found out that we had some additional costs due to the geotech investigation, that it was deeper water than we anticipated, and everything we looked at suggested that it should not be, but it is. So we had to come back and modify the design, as you can see here. We had to take this thing, which was really wide before, and narrow it down. So we have these structures built to be able to haul a 300-ton lift across it. We narrowed this. This is going to be built for 300, but we have the pilings driven in there that we can expand off of that if we ever do move forward. We don't have to come back and drive new pilings. So, and of course, there's our washdown pad. So boats will come off. They'll go over and get washed. Then they'll come over here to the yard, which I'll show you. And so this is the north yard and this is the west yard. Right now, we only have funding to be able to work with the north yard. We're considering this phase 1 of the project. Phase 2 then is to come into the western yard at some point. But so boats will come out, they'll get washed here, they'll go into the different parts of the yard. We can also look at, we have another concept that maybe instead of using all these sites, this is for lots that are leased to welders and whatever else that could go with that. But there's a lot of that stuff hasn't been figured out yet. We're just trying to build stuff to get boats out of the water in a quick and as fast manner as possible, since we do not currently have a haul out. That's a picture of a 150-ton lift out of Wrangell. That's what our lift's going to look like. And so I want to talk about some of our next steps. We still have to do environmental permitting. This is this thing that's dragging this along the longest. I mean, we could go start putting piling in the water tomorrow, but we have to follow all the federal regulations and do that. Well, we can't put stuff in the water because we haven't finished our design. So one of the things that's just happened is our engineers came together with a 35% design. We took that 35% design out and we asked, we put out bids for construction companies to come in and bid on that. We selected a group called Western Marine last week. These folks will now work with our engineering team and the public works team and myself to come up with a 65% design, which will turn into a final design, which will get us closer dialed in on those costs and see what's going to happen. Also, concurrently, we have an invitation to bid out to buy a piece of that haul out hoist. That's out. It's due April 16th. We're also working on who's going to operate this haul out. Is it going to be a municipal run facility? Is it going to be a private run facility? So we're developing an RFP similar to what Kodiak did, looking at if a guy wants to operate, or a person wants to operate, what cost do they want to charge to do that? And do those costs fit in line with what the fleet's willing to pay or not? So that's going to be a negotiated, ongoing process. We're trying to get that out as soon as possible. Melissa and I have been working on another Denali Commission grant, because nowhere in the park plan is there any electrical. And we've heard from folks that want to use this that they want to have power pedestals at each of the boat stalls. So we've got a grant out there that we're looking at. Since we have no money to match anything, we're asking the Denali Commission for 50% of the amounts just to get power into the north yard. And then we're going to leverage that to go to the EDA Public Works program and hopefully get some more money for that. And then, of course, we're continuing always to look for additional funds because of that 5.8 million delta. Plus, we've got whole phase 2, plus we've got electrical. So the main goal is we had a shoestring budget. We figured out the best way to get boats out of the water, get them on the deck, and then try to figure out, what can we do to improve on this in the future. But the main point is just to be able to get boats out of the water. So I want to offer Michael, you want to say anything, just because you're running a whole other part of this?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Only thing I would stress, as Gary's mentioned, we are short of funding on that first phase. So when you look at the drawings we're showing up there today, that's our future goal. We won't get there right away, but hang in there as we keep going for funding. And that first amount we have right now really isn't going to produce that north yard even yet. We're just building the marine infrastructure right now, so I don't want to surprise anybody when you go out there and the project's done first phase at the end of this year and you don't see all those parking stalls and all that. But the park has a lot of capability. I mean, a developer or an operator can come in, as Gary said, investing in a good lift and use that property as is and get us going and operating at the level that the Elbit Point Marine was. Pretty easy to get to that level and then have that ability to expand much greater than that in the future. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity, but bear with us and be patient as it builds over time, just like the airport. I've been working on that for 15 years and now you get to see it come to reality, that's just what these big jobs take, you know, patience and dedication, and Gary's been working hard at that, and Melissa and everybody at that money side just takes a long time. So, thank you.
So you said the RFP is out right now for someone to operate?
It's
Or
not
to
out,
bid
it's-
on,
it's-
or you're working on it?
It's 90% done.
Oh, okay, so it'll get released
Yeah,
soon, okay.
we're opening-
Definitely share it with us, I'd love to share that out
Sure.
when it's available. Because you're looking for someone that wants to create a business around that, serving that need and operating the park, or the haul out, right?
Yeah, and this whole thing has a great opportunity to be an economic driver.
Yeah.
We have a really good outfit in Wrangell working. We've got one up in Hoona that's serving the fleet, but we've got a lot of really good marine services peoples here. We've got the ability to expand on that, especially we've got like 6.8 acres, which is pretty decent. It's not obviously all that we need, but we have the ability to start bringing in some Puget Sound boats. Instead of having to travel all the way back there with the price of fuel, if they can get their work done here with quality tradesmen people, I think we have a good thing going.
Thanks, Gary. Wondering, like, looping back to the like the cost analysis you did to the cost placed on the fleet by having to go to like Wrangell. Like, what cost was it? How much is this costing? Like controllers and seiners.
Remember, it's something like, I want to say 25 million over 20 years in fuel. I know the emissions cost was like $11 million. Loss of fishing time, I can't remember, but
Okay.
I mean, I have those numbers, I just don't
Yeah,
have them in
but
my
into
head.
tens of millions.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Not to mention safety.
yeah, and the safety of having to cruise down there, especially if you got an issue with your boat, you need to get out of water.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna take a 150-mile trip down south.
Across Queen Charlotte Sound in a
Yeah.
on boat on your way to Seattle.
Well, and I often think of when you do a CETA presentation and you show the bucket, and the leaking bucket is, this project really, puts a hole in that bucket, or puts a plug in there and keeps the money in town. So many families, the boat is down in Seattle or in Washington, and they're taking all that money to work on it, and the time in the hotels, and it's just, it'll be really great to be able to keep our fleet here, and then, yes, capitalize on some other folks coming through that can be here, so.
I mean, I know a lot of guys with boats, and they're down south, and they've got to pay for hotels because it's not a do-it-yourself yard. You turn over your keys.
Right.
You go stay at a hotel, and someone else is doing all the work. We're going to try to keep this a do-it-yourself open yard where you have the ability to do that. That operational RFP will help dictate some of that. Somebody might want to come in and say that I want to do the whole meal deal where we're running everything, and then that's a community discussion
Right.
of how it's going to be run and what the costs are and everything else.
Okay. Awesome.
That's all I got. And I want to thank everybody, Melissa, Michael, John, Ron before he left. There's a lot of work that goes into this, so.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Gary. So just a couple things we will have in 2 weeks' time. We will have a presentation from Seafood Producers Co-op, and they're going to talk about how they're saving by converting their heating and into electricity. So I think it's going to be a really cool presentation, and really, for years we would bring folks in that would talk about like convert, and this is an actual real life example of that happening. So we're really looking forward to that, and yeah, make sure you check those emails. We'll keep updating everyone. Thanks for being here. It was great to see all of you.
Recording stopped.
Then I was like, well, I just